All right. So now we've got some value that I want to add. Again, my name is Robert Smith. I want to start off our next session with a question. Okay. How many of you who have Excel as a main part of your job, one of the main tools that you need in order to manipulate data on an ongoing basis, how many of you have repetitive tasks that revolve formatting, adjusting, dealing with data and manipulating it in such a way that you have to take in disparate pieces of data, put them together, create a report, create some type of work product that gets passed on to someone else? How many of you have that as a regular part of your job? Okay. What value would there be in me trying to give you a tool that can have you automate all of that functionality in one button click? Capture all the steps that you make to those pieces of data, create a button on your toolbar that you can click whenever you have that process to come through, whenever that work product is needs to be generated. Would that help you save time? Would that add value to your life? Okay. Well, if so, macros is a key piece of information that you're going to need. A key tool that you'll want to put in your tool bag, and in the next 15 minutes, we're going to try and make you an expert. Well, expert may be a stretch, but I'll get you started in such a way that you'll be able to take these resources back to your job and put them to immediate use. And then I'll show you some ways to where you can delve a little bit deeper into those tools, possibly create a suite of macros for your office, such that everyone is using a consistent way to generate those work products, those work packages, and have all that benefit accrue to you as being the one, because you came to this program, to be able to bring that value to your office. All right? So let's get started. So we pulled up Microsoft Excel. We're using Microsoft Excel 2006. There are a couple of differences in previous editions, but most of what we're talking about is going to apply. So one of the first things when we're talking about macros, well, I'll give you an overview first. What is a macro? A macro we can think of as a mini program. Okay, it's a number of steps that is recorded or programmed into Excel such that whenever you need to execute this particular process on a repeated basis, you know exactly where to go. There's a name associated with it. You can associate hotkeys with a macro, which makes them, you can get access to them even quicker in your work process. And you have extreme amount of control and ability to create functionality in a macro, because you can get as far down as a programmer would be able to get as far as trying to manipulate the data, having access to the resources that are on a computer, which is why we're going to point out there's some security issues that we'll want to cover and want to look out for as we bring macros into our environment. But there are recorded processes, programmed processes, many programs that you can run and have them execute for you consistently. Now, in order for us to get the ability to use macros in the Excel environment, we're going to need the Developers tab. And as I look across our number of tabs that are available, Developer is not there. So our first step is to go to File and Options. Underneath File Options, we have two items here that I want you to look at. First is Customize Ribbon. Notice that in Customize Ribbon, I see a list of common commands that are available. And on the right side, I see the tabs. So Home, Insert, Page Layout, you'll notice that they correspond to the tabs that are available across the top here. Home, Insert, Page Layout, Formulas, Data. And we see that Developer is unchecked by default. I'm going to just check that and click OK. So now we have the Developers tab. But before I leave, I want to point out something that we may come back to later, especially when you're trying to implement this at home in your office. Sometimes people, instead of coming to customize ribbon, they end up in the quick access toolbar. You'll notice that they look very similar. In that, on the left-hand side, you're going to see a list of commands that are available. But on the right-hand side, when people are looking for the checkboxes, they only see these single commands of save, undo, redo. This quick access toolbar is this little toolbar here. And later on, after we go through macros, one of the things that you can do is to create a button for your macro and make it a part of your toolbar, so that just like you see save, undo, redo here, you can also have your macro of generate a variance report or create a P&L or whatever piece of functionality that you need to have control of, to have it be able to reproduce in Excel on a consistent basis. So I wanted to point that out to you before we moved on. But let's get back to the Developers tab now that we've added it to our ribbon. And the Developers tab gives us a number of pieces of functionality, and I'm going to just briefly highlight a couple. So Visual Basic Editor, we're going to come back to. Macros is going to give us the list of macros that already exist, that are in scope here, either for this worksheet, this workbook, or in the Excel SM file, in the XSLM file, the Excel macro file. We also have the ability to set macro securities, which we'll come back to, as well as several other suites of tools that you'll be using once you get much more in depth into the functionality of Excel macros. But let's create our first one. So in order to create a real example, I'm just going to go out and get some data to make it an example that is similar to something that you would actually use in your office. I'm going to go to UPS's Investor tab, Investor Relations, and pull down maybe one of their quarterly reports. So just pulled up some data. I'm going to enable editing here to give an example of maybe something that you would be doing in your office. I'm going to go back to our sheet, create a new sheet, and I'm going to create a macro by coming to the Developers tab and clicking on the Record Macro button. Record Macro is going to give us a chance to create a name for this, and I'm going to say we're going to create the variant report. And the shortcut key I'm going to do is Control right paren. And a brief description, create variant report for UPS. Okay. Nope, can't do that. We actually need to have either a number or a letter. Doesn't include spaces or characters in the hotkeys, as well as in the name. I'm sorry. Take that out. Okay. Shortcut is a letter, Control-Shift-P. Now we're recording. So whatever steps I take now, whatever changes I make to the spreadsheet, is now going to be recorded in the macro. And we're going to take a look at how Excel stores that information and how we'll be able to go in and edit that information to meet more of our needs shortly. So I'm going to go ahead and create I'm going to type in variant report. And I'm just going to highlight a few columns. Come back to our home tab. I'm going to merge and center. I'm going to say UPS, say second quarter, UPS quarterly. And for these two, I maybe change the formatting to highlight those in yellow. And I'll maybe set a border, a thick outside border all the way across. And then I'll go to our quarterly report and grab some data, some of the headings here. I'm just going to take these, copy. And with copy, I did Control-C, the hotkey, and now I'm doing Alt-Tab to get back to my original sheet. Paste. And I'm doing Alt-Tab again. Sorry, not able to get back to that one. And I'm just going to grab a couple of the quarterly headers right across the top. Hit Escape, Control-C, Alt-Tab, click here and Control-V to paste. And now I'm going to go back to my developer and click Stop Recording. Okay, so what just happened? I'm going to go to my macro button here, which drops down a list of all of the macros that are associated with open workbooks that we have here. Right now we got our create variant report. I can go into edit, and that's going to bring up our Visual Basic editor, which actually is the same thing that I would get if I press the Visual Basic button up here in the left-hand corner. This is what you just created. In recording your macro, we created the create variant report. There's some comments that have been added in by default. Shows what the keyboard shortcut key is. You'll notice that, and there's several objects, functions, methods, and properties that are being used for you that as you get better with macros, you're going to want to understand what these are and how to go out and find out about them. And let me tell you, Google's your friend. Microsoft Help can get you started, but go to Google, go to YouTube, find the videos that are on these particular keywords, Excel, macros, and then plug in, like Active Cell has a formula for formula R1C1, which is a way of referencing a cell. Basically, this is telling Excel that in this particular cell reference, the one that's highlighted, R1C1, you're going to enter this text, variant report. And then for ranges A1 through F1, that is column A, row 1, all the way out to column F, row 1, highlight that and select it and perform these particular alignments as we did the horizontal alignment, vertical alignment. All of that occurred when I clicked the merge and center button. All of that is captured in this line here. So you'll see that all of these steps capture those keyboard things that I did, and this is how Excel would represent this stuff in text. So without having to know anything about programming in Visual Basic, without knowing anything about Excel, you were able to simply create the workflow that you needed in order to reproduce that report. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close out here and go back to create a new sheet. I'm going to go to macros and run. So now, instead of you having to go through all these manual processes week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter, at whatever frequency that you need, you see that now once you create this macro and have the proper references in it, it'll create that format just the way you want it. All you need to do is make sure that you do the record, follow the naming instructions that you need, and make sure that you save it in the workbook and in the scope that you need. Now, we created this macro. What I want to do now is go back to our options. I want to go back to our quick access. And I want to drop down this list. So we're going to choose from commands. Right now we have the popular commands. These are all the ones that are most frequently used. If I drop this list down, you get the option to select macros. And you'll see that the macro that we just created now shows up as a piece of functionality that we can add to our quick access bar. I'm going to click here and modify. So we had this little default icon, default GIF that comes up for every macro. But we can come and select one of the other predefined macros for it. I like that butterfly. Just makes me feel happy. So we're just going to select that little butterfly with its little colors. And we're going to add that as our icon, and I'm going to click OK. Now, it doesn't give me all the colors because of the formatting and imaging that we're using in our environment. But Create Variant Report is now available to you in a quick access toolbar whenever you want. I hope you can see that this is a powerful thing, because now you can create as many macros, as many toolbars, as many buttons as you need in your environment in order to simplify the work that you have. Okay? I'm going to go back to the VB editor here for just a moment. What I've given you here is a start to show you how to record macros, how to get that functionality available to you in your work environment. When you go back to try and get better at learning how to use macros, you're going to see that in certain spaces that you're going to have down here the ability to see certain elements, properties that are available in different scopes. Google is your friend. Microsoft Help will get you started. Take a look at some of the videos on programming in Visual Basic, Excel macros, and any of the keywords here to get you functionality. You can go as deep as you want to as far as access to functionality on the machine, as far as getting tools, not only in Excel. Macros actually work across the whole Microsoft Office suite. So here I'm giving you an example of how to use this in Excel. If you have these similar types of work processes that occur in Word, occur in Access, Publisher, PowerPoint, any of the other ones also have the ability to do macros as well. So take a look at that functionality. All right? So that gets us started with macros. We're going to close out here, and when we come back, we'll go into another advanced topic.